back to another video here at Joe Daddy's Garage. As you know, I do a variety of videos. I do some repair videos, some maintenance videos, and I have a lot of Mustang videos, particularly of that Mustang that's sitting on the lift back there, known as the Brooklyn Pony. Now, I go through my videos and I try to show you details. I try to show you problems. I try to show you how I resolve those problems and move forward so that I can keep the project moving. I want you to learn from that, and that's why I make these videos the way I do. Now recently I did a video on rebuilding the door hinges for the Brooklyn Pony. And I got a lot of great feedback from that video. You know, people suggested I get a press and different things like that, and that's fine. I like to have the feedback. I think that video went very well, and I'm going to show you some things that go along with that. I believe this is the upper hinge for the driver's side. Went together fine, no issues. This is the lower hinge for the driver's side, completely rebuilt, ready to go. Well, from that video that I did, I had somebody contact me and ask me to rebuild the hinges for their 67 Mustang. And this is where things get a little interesting. The kit that I'm using is part number HW899, and I'll show you a picture of that. Boop. Okay, this kit is designed to rebuild both the upper and lower hinges for 65 to 67 Mustangs. What's unique is, I think if I understand this correctly, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but the early 67s had a different hinge than the later 67. And we know the 68 has a different hinge altogether, at least the tension hinge. I think the upper hinges are the same. So I want to show you some issues that I'm having trying to use this kit from CJ Pony. I started off, I disassembled, cleaned up, painted, put the bushings in. This is the upper hinge. This is for the left side. So it's still in pieces. And I also did the same for the lower hinge. Now this is not fully assembled. This is just, it has the pins sitting in it right now. But there's a reason for that, and I want to show you what's going on. So I'm going to reset the camera and give you some information that will hopefully help you with your project. So again, here's the kit part number that I'm using. These are the hinges from the Brooklyn Pony, all rebuilt and ready to go. So I can just kind of set those aside a little bit. The problem I'm running into is with these hinges on the 67, you know, they've got a different shape altogether. You know, you can see that when it's put together, you know, it's got a bigger, wider base, let's say, and then a wider segment that attaches to the door. If you compare that to the Brooklyn Pony one, you can see a, you know, big size difference. And this one also has 3 bolt holes in it, whereas this one only has 2. Still has 3 to mount to the A pillar, and same thing with that, 3 bolt holes. Okay, what I've discovered when I ordered this kit, you know, of course it came with bushings and pins and all this, you know, all the little extra pieces you need to put this together, including, you know, the little arm, stuff like that. What I want to show you is, this is the pin that came with the kit. There's 2 of these. This pin is from a separate kit. This kit was HW468, and this is for 65 to 73. So you can see it's got a longer pin. The reason for that, I believe, is, you know, the later models had these longer pins, and the way this kit is set up, you can put these pins in and cut them off whatever length you need. So that has its advantages. This is the pin that came out of the 67 hinge, and I'm hoping I can get enough light on this to give you the details that I want to share. So maybe I can get the light a little bit closer. Here's the issue. If you look closely at these 2 pins, and again, I can't tell if I've got enough light to make it happen, but I mean, let me set this a different place. That's better. So the pin on the left, this one, is out of the 67. The pin on the right is from the kit. Do you see the big difference? Because it's a huge difference. The grooves that are pressed into this when it was made are different lengths. Even if you look at this pin, it has a different length as well. Let me slide that over so you can see the different length there. So you've got 3 different lengths of these splines. Here's where it becomes a problem. The 67 hinge, let me back out a little bit. The 67 hinge, if you compare the thickness of this part of the hinge to the thickness on the older hinges, this is huge. This is a very beefy area. That's a lot thinner. In fact, the difference, if I measure it off, is roughly it's about 485 on the 65 or 66 hinge, and if I measure it here, it's about 210. Okay, this is why it becomes important to watch what you're doing and look at how things go together. If I were to take this and assemble it, I'm just going to set this together, back up a little bit. If I were to try and assemble this hinge, right? If I used the original or the replacement hinge or replacement pin, it would press all the way through this part of the hinge. See there? It would press all the way through that part of the hinge and press into the new bushing. It would actually compress into the new bushing. Let's see if I got my. It's kind of hard to see all that, but anyway, the idea being, if you had this assembled on the bench and you started pressing this pin in here, you wouldn't be able to turn this hinge. It would not turn. It would not function. So I started looking at it a little bit harder, and I thought, wait a minute, I kept the old pins. Why can't I just put those in? There's nothing wrong with them. You know, they seem to be in decent shape. Could I reuse those? The answer is no. And let me show you why. If I measure this pin, it comes out about 342, somewhere in that range, okay? The replacement pin that comes in a kit, it measures out at about 336. That's a big difference. So basically, if you were to install, this is the regular pin that came with the kit, install that in there, it fits fine. You try to install that big pin or bigger pin, and you're going to have problems. It's going to want to bind. It won't fit. Okay. Now, this is the pin that came in that other kit. It's a 338, somewhere in that range, and this pin will fit. It'll actually go through those bushings, but it's very snug. So what is the answer? Well, I think the answer is I can't use this pin, and I can't use this pin, but what I'm going to have to use is the replacement pin that came in a kit. So I'm going to take a sanding disc and sand down these splines to try to get them smooth so that when I push this in, it will not bind with the bushing. I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to make it very clear, and I may be just repeating myself. I don't know. But that's the situation that I'm having right now. And that's the only way I can see to fix it. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to blend those down, and you can use the upper portion here of this, the door side of the bracket, to see how much length you really need to sand off of that. But that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so all I did was take my sanding disc and just gently rotated it around while I did the sanding off. And all I'm trying to do is get enough of that off that it won't create that bind that I'm talking about. So once I did that, then I can take this hinge, press it together, and I can see now this sinks in Hopefully you can see that. There you go. Now it sinks in a lot further without binding with the bushing. So that's a good sign. That's what I want to happen. So now what I'm going to do is I'll push this or press this pin into the hinge assembly and we'll give it a test run. Okay, so make sure you have your hinge facing the right way when you put it together. Take pictures beforehand just in case, because you don't want to have to take this back apart. And you can look at the function of the hinge as well and see which way it faces, you know, whenever you operate it. Let me get this lined up. Okay, so now I have the pin in place. I'm using a little 3/8 socket. I'm going to put that on the bottom side where the pin may come out. I don't expect it to, but I want to have something there just in case. Let me rotate that a little bit. It's going to be kind of tricky to get this in the right shot, but I'm going to try. I may not need that socket after all. So let me finish pressing that the rest of the way in. Hey, look at that. Perfect. Pin is flush on the bottom. It's pressed flush at the top. And no bind. So for the lower hinge, I'm not going to worry about sanding off any of those grooves. It's not necessary because this is very thick, just like the 66 hinge. So I'll just assemble this same way. And again, make sure you line up the pieces. You know, they should be, on the later model, this 67 model, they're pretty obvious, or seems more obvious. There we go. Just because you can look at where the detent is for the spring, the arm, and all that stuff. So I'm going to press this together as well. Perfect. I like it. Well, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and press in the pin that holds the arm. A little bit of paint getting in my way. Now I do want to point out as well, I didn't think about this earlier. I did not mention this. The pins that were in this hinge for the 67, I salvaged those. I reused those pins and I reused these arms. The reason for that is I know from the other one that I put together for the 66, I had trouble getting the replacement pin to go in this hole. And since I was able to drive this out with a punch on the back side of the 67 hinge, there was no reason not to reuse it. Nothing is worn, great shape, and I know it's going to fit. So now, as I said, I salvaged and reused the arm that came on the 67 and the pin. And in fact, the roller that's on this, I like it. It's not showing any signs of wear. It rotates freely. And if you go back to the other videos that I did, or the other video I did on the 66, you remember that there was an issue trying to get this pin to go into that hinge, and I had to sand it down, you know, to make it fit. So just because you've got everything in the kit doesn't necessarily mean you need to use everything in the kit. I like the original stuff as much as I can, or like to use the original stuff as much as I can. So I'm going to try to stick with that. There's, like I said, there's no wear at all on this roller. It turns fine, and the original arm fits it like it should. So I'm not going to worry about that at all. These are now, other than putting a spring back in, which I've shown in the other video, I will have to use the spring compressor tool that I talked about before or showed before. And that's what this is. Picked it up at Advanced Auto Parts. I'm not going to do that on this video, but because I really wanted to show you the highlight of that pin difference. If you want to see the other stuff, you can go to the other video. But anyway, much happier now. I know this thing, both these are working flawless, and that's what I need. So, well, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you found some information you can use on your project. Again, I was surprised to see that this pin, was not built specifically for the 67, but again, it was a generic kind of kit, 65 to 67 as listed. I don't know why. Maybe they sell a kit specifically for the 67. I don't know. Or maybe they hope that people will figure this out on their own. I don't know that either. Nonetheless, now you know, and you can apply it to your project. So just be wary of that the 67 pins are definitely different. And if you do it the other way without smoothing that down, you'll be regretting it because your hinge won't work. So again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for any thumbs up. If you want to throw one on there, that'd be great. If you want to leave a comment, that'd be great too. I like the feedback. Helps me out with the projects. And that's going to be it. So shelter in place. Hey gang, welcome back to another video at Joe Daddy's Garage. But most importantly, I'd like to show you things that, see ya, may help you in your project or in maybe some problems you're having with hit that bell notification and let me show you what I'm talking about. And I got some great feedback on those videos, or on that. So 67 hinges are rather unique. Now this is the upper hinge, I'm sorry, this is the lower hinge. Veins or Nope. All right. Clapping my hands again. Just trying to help.